history. Death is beaten, you have rescued me. Sing it out, Jesus is alive.
The empty cross, the empty grave, life eternal, you have won the day. Shout it out, Jesus is alive. He's alive.
Oh, happy day, you wash my sin away. Oh, happy day, I'll never be the same. Forever I am changed.
When I stand in that place, free at last, meeting face to face, I am yours, Jesus, you are mine.
Endless joy, perfect peace, earthly pain finally will cease. Celebrate, Jesus is alive.
He's alive. Oh, happy day, you washed my sin away. Oh, happy day, I'll never be the same. Forever I am changed.
Oh, what a glorious day, what a glorious way that you have saved me. And oh, what a glorious day, what a glorious way. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, happy day, you wash my sin away. Oh, happy day, I'll never be the same.
Oh, no, 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 forever I am changed. I'll never be the same.
Welcome. Thank you for joining the broadcast tonight. I don't know what's going on. I can't get on a couple of the other streams tonight. There must be something funny going on with you now, but it looks like our other ones are up and working now, so that's all good. Just give me a 1 in a chat stream if you can hear me well. been trying some new stuff out, and because Facebook has made some changes, I'm just making sure everything's working right. That affects every little bit of this whole thing. But thanks so much for joining, Melanie, Amber. Thank you for being here. I have a couple different broadcasts up and running tonight, and so we are broadcasting on. Let me go. Thank you so much for just qualifying that you can hear me. Awesome. All right, 3, 2, 1, and now we're on live.me. We're on Stationhead, so let's work this out. We're on YouTube. YouNow's broke tonight for some reason. Again, I'm gonna have to go fix those guys tomorrow, maybe. Live.me, DLive.io. Who else we got going on? Periscope, of course, we got Periscope. Facebook, Twitch. Smashcast is not working tonight. I don't know what's going on. They must have changed my stream key or something. I gotta go change that. And then let's see, FC2 is running. Stream.me is running. Peaks. Oh, I didn't do Peaks tonight. Oh well, they'll be alright. Streamcraft is down for right now. And let me see who else we got going. Thanks so much for joining. And thanks so much for the super hearts. That is awesome. Rocky Top, thanks for joining. Instajib, Vaughn Live, Africa TV, OK.ru, and our new venture, the radio station over here on Stationhead, it's called. So, alright guys, I'm dealing with a little bit of a cold, but I don't own it. It's not mine. I don't want it, so I don't gotta take it. It's not mine. What's going on? Thanks for joining, Lorenzo. Thanks for being here. Guys, thanks for being in the broadcast. I don't know what is going on with my camera. It's all out of whack, too. Man, I got all kinds of stuff going on today. That's alright. Okay, so, who am I? I am Jason Wallace. I'm a believer and follower of Jesus Christ. I'm a prayer warrior. I'm a Bible reader. I'm a devoted husband and father. I'm a child of God. I'm a new creation. Pray for your new job opportunity. Got it. What's up, Awesomus Maximus? Thanks for joining. Let me finish it up and we'll get you right to you, buddy. How's it going? Who's that? Marianne. Thanks so much for joining. Let me see here. Member of Christ's body. I am a citizen of heaven. I am a friend of Christ. I am righteous and holy. And I am a very proud member of the Jesus Did It family. Now let's go ahead and pray for Rocky Top. Jesse, right? Jesse is his name. Lord, Heavenly Father, we lift up Jesse tonight. Lord, we just ask that you see and oversee, if it is your will, Lord, that there be a new job in place for him. Lord, we just ask that you give him guidance and direction so that way he can seek and acquire the job that he desires, Lord. We ask this in your mighty and powerful Son's name we pray. Amen and amen. Garment of Praises, thank you so much for joining. Hi, Beam is joined, and thanks so much for being here. Looks like I got my Facebooks are working now, so that's good. I remember you, Jesse. Everybody not think that. Pastor Rick, thanks so much for joining, and thanks for being here and supporting this. We got super hearts too, man. Thank you so much, Pastor Rick. That's right. Yes, Lord, amen. Absolutely. We'll definitely pray for that. So, you can see my garbage over here. Oh, that's very interesting. Hold on. Let me turn my screen. There we go. I don't understand what's going on with my... There we go. That might be a little bit better. Alright, so, if you had a time machine, where would you go and why? You know what I would do? If I had a time machine, I would go back to the day that Jesus was put on the cross. That day. I'd go back to that day. Because, not that I don't believe, but I would want to go be in his presence, to be around him, right? Just to be in the greatness that is Jesus Christ. So that's where I would go in my time machine. Grace and shalom to you too. Absolutely. Peace, and grace. Absolutely. So, and why? Because it's really a cool event. I would say it's the most world-changing event ever. The death, the death of Jesus Christ. It's changed so many lives and so many things that have involved with our world. So if it's world altering, I want to be there, right? I want to be there. Yep. That's where I would want to be. So I was wearing a really nice yellow shirt. I thought you guys would be nice to see me wearing color and see what happens when I wear yellow. Wait a minute, did you see that? Did you see what happened? My green screen has a weird effect with yellow. Apparently it thinks it's green. It's really weird. It's like a really nice mustardy color shirt, and I can't even wear it because it turns everything clear. So I tried being a little bit colorful today, and it did not work for me. But that's all right. Hey, Honeybee, thanks so much for joining. All right, so join us at JesusDidIt.org. You can get the affirmation sheet right there. That's all the I am statements. And then there's also the scripture thought of the day up top. There's Jesus Did It broadcasters right in the middle there. And then right down below there is the broadcasters we like to watch and people we support. So I thank you so much. Excuse me for visiting that website. And definitely... Who's that in my broadcast? I have not seen you in a long time. Marat, it looks like somebody else, but maybe it's somebody there. Mary Torres. I haven't seen you in a while. Thanks so much for joining. And either Amber, thank you so much for being here as well. So Amber, who else we got? We've got Marianne, of course. Who else is here? I already said hello to her. Melanie's in the house. Jesse, Pastor Rick, thanks so much for being here. And we got nobody on Station Head, but maybe one day we'll be able to. Thanks so much for the Super Hearts. You guys are awesome. Hopefully one day I'll be able to collect on them. We'll see. We shall see. So check out the Jesus Did It group. You can visit us at the facebook.com/JesusDidItTV account. And that will give you access to those two books on the top right corner are pretty good too. Absolutely. Take a look at the stuff over there. Way over there. Check out the books. You'll be very interested to read those. Very good books. From Brother Rick, our Pastor Rick, and our sister Becky. So, what are we doing? What are we doing? Doing tonight, doing a song, and for Mother's Day, we were challenged with our group. There was a challenge, and so I did a challenge, and the challenge was, what is your, what's a song that reminds you of your mother, and for you to sing it. So I know this is not a Christian song, but this is my mom's most favorite song, and so I sung it for her on Mother's Day on the app here. So I want to play it for you guys, and then we'll play a worship song in a little bit. Okay, so here we go. It's called "Lady" by the Little River Band. This is my mom's most favorite song. I thought I'd sing it to her as a gift. Look around you. Look up here. Take time to make time to be there. Look around. Be a part
and I love you best. You're not like the rest. You're there when I need you, you're there when I need. I'm gonna need you. A long time ago I had a lady to love. She made me think of things I never thought of. Now she's gone, I'm on my own. A love song has come into my mind. A love song is there all the time. So lady, let me take a look at you now. You're there on the dance floor, making me want you somehow. Oh lady, I think it's only fair I should say to you, don't be thinking that I don't want you, 'cause maybe I do. Look around, come to me. I have no answers, but I know where I wanna be. I look around, play the part. I was born in the winter and cooled by a warm heart. And I love you best. You're not like the rest. You're there when I need you, you're there when I need. I'm gonna need you. So lady, let me take a look at you now. You're there on the dance floor, making me want you somehow. Oh lady, I think it's only fair I should say to you, don't be thinking that I don't want you, 'cause maybe I do. Don't be thinking that I don't want you, lady, I do.
Happy Mother's Day, Mom. I hope that I've done your song justice. Love you. And thank you for always being there. Prayer is that God continues to grow and bring our family together closer and closer every day. Love you. All right. Well, that was the song I sung for Mother's Day. And the guys, make sure you're following Teach All I Know. Ruben Rana, very, very great man of God. I love the worship word art broadcast that he does. It's just great to go into prayer and listen to the Word of God. Just come out and be pulled out, and for him to draw that on the screen is just phenomenal. And for things to line up, and so many different people from different areas of the country and different places to be able to come together and really, there's lots of times where God lines everybody all up and all of the word just mashes together, and it just makes something pretty beautiful on the screen. And thankful for Ruben for being obedient and broadcasting on his account, Teach All I Know. So make sure you follow him. Make sure you follow Pastor Rick Costa for sure, because he broadcasts every single night. I know I'm not on every night, but I try to broadcast several times a week. And so yeah, so we'll I guess let's do a worship song now, because probably think we should. I think I did a new one this week. I'm not sure. I'll have to double check. We did another one for our group for I'll play that one on the end. So let's see. I really like this one. Let's do this one, Where I Belong.
Sometimes it feels like I'm watching from the outside. Sometimes it feels like I'm breathing, but am I alive? I won't keep searching for answers that aren't here to find. All I know is I'm not home yet. This is not where I belong. Take this world and give me Jesus. This is not where I belong.
So many walls come falling down on me, and when I'm lost in the current of a raging sea, I have this blessed assurance holding me. All I know is I'm not home yet. This is not where I belong. Take this world and give me Jesus. This is not where I belong. When the earth shakes, I wanna be found in you. When the lights fade, I wanna be found in you.
All I know is I'm not home yet. This is not where I belong. Take this world and give me Jesus. This is not where I belong. All I know is I'm not home yet. This is not where I belong. Take this world and give me Jesus. This is not where I belong. Where I belong. Where I belong. Where I belong. Where I belong.
Alright, I'm going to try. Let's see. Hopefully I don't break this. I'm going to try to bring you now on stream. We'll see. It's not going to work for me tonight. Praise God for His mercy. Absolutely. Absolutely. There's no doubt that we should be praising God for His mercy. No doubt at all. Let's see. Hopefully it doesn't break on me. Everything looks to be okay and not broken. Yes. But YouNow is still not functional. Good old YouNow. Thank you so much for breaking. Maybe one day it will decide to work right and everything will be fine. If not, oh well. So, alright, let's get into our reading for today. Our reading for today is from Psalm chapter 72. And here we go. Let's read this tonight. Alright, I'm going to bring these guys station head on to just microphone only so we don't have music in the background. Guys, we're broadcasting on station head, so if you're interested in that, take a look at it. It is not necessarily a free service, but it is definitely a good service to take a look at. If you have Apple Music, it's Apple Music or Spotify, either one of those with a subscription, you can join. And basically what it is there's radio stations, and I think I'm probably the only Christian radio station on the app right now, which is fine. And I'm just going to try to bring the Word of God to everybody who is ever wants to come in on this broadcast and listen. There was a couple nights I had a couple people, so 1 or 2 people, so I'm very thankful for that. So yeah, let's do this and see if my stream is working or not. It doesn't look like it. It don't look like the stream is working. Alright. Okay. Psalm 72. A Psalm of Solomon. And hopefully I don't sneeze in the middle of this. Alright, guys. So if I go quiet for a second, you know I'm sneezed. Actually, you know what? It's coming. Maybe. I'm going to be hot on the hand to stop it. Alright, a Psalm of Solomon. Chapter 72, Psalms. Give the king your judgments, O God, and your righteousness to the king's son. Glory in versatility of the Messiah's reign. He will judge your people with righteousness, and your poor with justice. The mountains will bring peace to the people, and the little hills by righteousness. Now I'm good. He will bring justice to the poor of the people. He will save the children of the needy, and he will break in pieces the oppressor. They shall fear you as long as the sun and the moon endure, throughout all generations. He shall come down like rain upon the grass before mowing, like showers that water the earth. In his days the righteous shall flourish, and the abundance of peace until the moon has no more. He shall have dominion also from the sea to sea, and from the river to the ends of the earth. Those who dwell in the wilderness will bow before him, and his enemies will lick the dust. The kings of Tarshish and all of the isles will bring presents. The kings of Sheba and Seba will offer gifts. Yes, all the kings shall fall down before him. All the nations shall serve him. For he will deliver the needy when he cries, the poor also, and him who has no helper. He will spare the poor and the needy, and he will save the souls of the needy. He will redeem their life from oppression and violence, and precious shall be the blood in his sight, shall be their blood in his sight. And he shall live, and the gold of Sheba the gold of Sheba will be given to him. Prayer also will be made for him continually, and daily he shall be praised. There will be an abundance of grain in the earth, and, on the top of the mountains. Its fruit shall wave like Lebanon, and those of the city shall flourish like grass on the earth. His name shall endure forever. His name shall continue as long as the sun, and men shall be blessed in him. All the nations shall call him blessed. Blessed be the Lord God, the God of Israel, who only does wondrous things. And blessed be his glorious name forever, and let the whole earth be filled with his glory. Amen and amen. The prayers of David, the son of Jesse, are ended. And that is chapter 72. We're getting through this from Genesis to Revelation, one chapter at a time. We're in Psalm 72. We're getting pretty close to getting through this book. So that'll be good. Moving on to the next one, So, definitely. Alright, so, guys, check it out. I am an official Our Daily Bread ambassador. I am signed up the Real Deal ambassador. So I'm spreading the word through these little tiny books, and it's a great thing to do. So I have a couple up at work. I'm going to take a couple around to some other places that I have already kind of talked to them about, and so I'm an official ambassador for Our Daily Bread, which is a pretty cool thing. So it's really an honor. Alright, so for today, Sunday, May 12th, the title is Love Won't Stop. Sorry, I had a yawn. It is a blessing, isn't it? And you can get your own copy, right? Your own copy at odb.org. You can go to the website, and there's plenty of different ways of getting this in your hands. They'll send you a free copy. You can get it maybe at your church. Check and see. It might be in the back of your church. You might not even know it's there already. You can download an app on your phone. They can send it to you in email. They can send it to you in the a different on the Messenger app as well. So there's a bunch of different ways that you can get the Our Daily broadcast. Who is that? We got somebody new. Thanks so much for being here. At Mountain Mouse. Is that somebody you know? Oh, I'm already friends with her. Eileen Woods. Thanks so much for joining, Eileen. Who's that? Brilliant Malik Beats. Thanks so much for joining on the broadcast. Alright, so for Sunday, May 12th, the title is Love Won't Stop. And this is written by Zythel Dixon. After I turned 19, and years before I owned a pager or a cell phone, I moved more than 700 miles away from my mom. One morning, I left early to run errands, forgetting our scheduled call. Later that night, 2 policemen came to my door. Mom had been worried because I'd never missed one of our chats. After calling repeatedly and getting a busy signal, she reached out to the authorities and insisted they check on me. One of the officers turned to me and said, "It's a blessing to know love won't stop looking for you." That's a true, right? She's the I Love Snow Scopes. Okay. When I picked up the phone call, my mom, or phone to call my mom, I realized I had accidentally left the receiver off of its base. After I apologized, she said that she needed to spread the good news to the family and friends that she had informed that I'd been missing. I hung up thinking she's overreacted a bit. Throughout it, felt throughout, though it felt good to be loved that much. Scripture paints a beautiful picture of God, who is love, relentlessly beckoning his wandering children. Like a good shepherd, he cares about and he seeks out every lost sheep, affirming their priceless value of every beloved child of God. Love never stops looking for us. He will pursue us until we've returned to him. We can pray for others who need to know that love. God never stops looking for them either. That's true. That is absolutely true. And I thank God for not stopping looking for me. How does it encourage you to know that God continually pursues you in love? How is he using you to reveal his love to others? Good questions. The prayer for today says, Lord, thanks for pursuing us with persistence and providing a safe place when we return to your loving arms. That's good. Today's reading was from Luke chapter 15, verses 1 through 7. And the key verse for today is Luke chapter 15, verse 6. Rejoice with me. I have found my lost sheep. Boom. That's a good reading for today. That's a real good reading for today. All right. So guys, if you have any prayer requests, praise reports, looks like I gotta fix my camera. My camera's all messed up. If you guys have any prayer requests, praise reports, please put them in the chat stream. We'd love to pray for you and praise God for answer prayers as well, for sure. And speaking about that, answer prayers, if you guys are ever had any of your prayers answered, or you want to share a testimony about anything that's happened on my broadcast, or Pastor Rick's broadcast, or Becky, or Joshua, or any other Jesus Did It broadcaster, definitely let us know. Pastor Rick, I think, had something in that group there that you could do, or you can email us for sure, jason@jesusdidit.org, or rick@jesusdidit.org. And on Sunday, May 26th at 5:30, hopefully all of us will be able to be on the broadcast, and we're going to have a testimony night. We're going to read your testimonies that you send to us about how God has moved, answered prayer, whatever it may be. Oh, somebody sent me some I don't know what that was. It was like a helicopter that went across the screen on live.me. It's very interesting. Yeah, we want to hear from you, how that has helped you, right? Heaven's miraculous. Thanks so much for joining. So you definitely want to check out the broadcast on Periscope and Facebook, the @JesusDidIt TV account right there. This camera is backwards for some reason. You want to do @JesusDidIt TV on Periscope and on Facebook. So whichever one you want to watch it from, go right ahead, and we will be broadcasting to both. God willing, the technology stays up and working. I'm working on that. So if you have any prayer requests or praise reports now, we would love to pray for you as well. So thanks so much for being here. Thanks for being a part of this Jesus Did It broadcast. I think that's it for announcements. I don't think I have anything else. We covered Jesus Did It website already. I don't know. I think we gotta do a song while we're waiting for any prayer requests to come in. We could do that for sure. Oh, we got one. Good night all. I'm going to hit the bed early. Heart, invite, share out. Bless you. Thanks so much for doing that. I appreciate that. And may you sleep well tonight. Alright. So, Let's see, what other song can we dig out of the song archives over here? God bless the broken road. That one's a good one. Pray that your earlier morning skills will continue to help people. That's good. I am not a very early morning person, so if you're broadcasting very early morning, I'm not that well at visiting those ones. But I haven't seen Edwin in a while. I miss my friend Edwin. Let's do a Who Am I? Just for our friend Edwin. I haven't seen him in a long, long time. There we go. Who am I? Remember, put your prayer requests and things like that. I'm going to pray for you right now, Amber. Lord, we just lift up Amber's ministry, Lord. We ask that you continue to use her to help people in the morning. Lord, we ask this in Jesus' mighty, powerful name. Amen.
Who am I that the Lord of all the earth would care to know my name, would care to feel my hurt? Who am I that the bright and morning star would choose to light the way for my ever-wandering heart? Not because of who I am, but because of what you've done. Not because of what I've done, but because of who you are. I am a flower quickly fading, here today and gone tomorrow. A wave tossed in the ocean, a vapor in the wind. Still you hear me when I'm calling. Lord, you catch me when I'm falling, and you told me who I am. I'm yours. I'm yours.
Who am I that the eyes that see my sin would look on me with love and watch me rise again? Who am I that the voice that calmed the sea would call out through the rain and calm the storm in me? Not because of who I am, but because of what you've done. Not because of what I've done, but because of who you are. I am a flower quickly fading, here today and gone tomorrow. A wave tossed in the ocean, a vapor in the wind. Still you hear me when I'm calling. Lord, you catch me when I'm falling, and you told me who I am. I'm not because of who I am, but because of what you've done. Not because of what I've done, but because of who you are. I am a flower quickly fading, here today and gone tomorrow. A wave tossed in the ocean, a vapor in the wind. Still you hear me when I'm calling. Lord, you catch me when I'm falling, and you told me who I am.
tonight. Lord, we lift up Charmaine tonight. Lord, we know that there may be somebody who has evil plans against her, Lord, whatever it may be. Lord, we just ask that you put a hedge of protection around her, Lord, and allow those people who are stalking her to be backed off, and Lord, let their conscience, let the Holy Spirit work through them. Lord, we ask that you once again put a hedge of protection around her. In Jesus' mighty and powerful name we pray. Amen and amen. That is not Edwin. That is a guy named what's his name? James. Let me see. James Styles. I don't know what his real name is, but that's James Styles. We sung one with Edwin not that long ago. There was one that was sung with Edwin. Oh, thanks, Shampoo. Thanks for putting something in my chat stream. Semi-inappropriate. Thanks so much, Brilliant Malik. Thanks so much for being here. I'm being a little bit trolled over on D Live tonight, but that's okay. Yeah, we'll have to find the Edwin version and play it one of these nights. There's a bunch of different songs. I'm singing a bunch of ones that are not necessarily please pray for your grandson. He's 11. He said tonight that he was a mistake. I told him no one is. Listen. There is nobody's a mistake. Everybody is in God's plan, right? Even though a person may not have planned, and I'll tell you right now, I didn't plan on having children either, but you know what? My kids are not mistakes, and I would never tell them that they are, because they came here for a reason. They were put here for a reason, right? And that's right. So let's do that. Mary, let's just pray about that. So, Lord Heavenly Father, we lift up Mary's grandson tonight, Lord. We just ask that you touch his heart, Lord, and allow him to be able to see you in the truth, Lord. Lord, let him know that he was not a mistake, that he is in your plan, that he is part of your will on this earth, Lord, and you have a mighty work that's to be done through him. Lord, we just ask that you continue to strengthen and encourage him, and don't let the words of the devil of this world, right? We just ask that those words be protected from him, Lord, and allow him to be able to understand that he is your child, that he is chosen, that he is righteous, that he is everything that you say he is in your word tonight, Lord. So, Lord, we just ask that you continue to work over him and let him know that he is loved and that he is here for a reason. In your mighty and powerful Son's name we pray. In Jesus Christ's name, amen. Amen. All right, Lisa, take it easy. We'll pray for you. Lord, we just ask for Lisa for whatever the unspoken prayer request is. Lord, you know what it is, and we just ask that you continue to take care of her, whatever that is. If it is your will, we ask this in Jesus' mighty and powerful name we pray. Amen. Yeah, I'd be upset too. There's a lot of times when I was growing up, I felt like I was going to be. I believe sometime last year, Edwin had talked about going to the military. Really, I didn't know that they took people who had disabilities into the military. I didn't know that. But I guess there's no reason why not, right? I'll have to reach out to him and see. I know last time I talked to him, he said he was been really busy working a lot. So I didn't know So no, I'm pretty sure he's confined to a wheelchair. But I know he's been working a bit, I guess is what he was saying. So I'm not sure what's up with him. There's been a few people I haven't seen. A few of the long-time followers have been not really active. They've been kind of distant from Periscope. So I don't know. Yeah, I'll reach out to him. It's on my heart to reach out to him, so I'll reach out to him. Direct message on Twitter. Alright guys, it's getting close to bedtime, so I got to get up early tomorrow and go to the chiropractor, get my back fixed. So yeah. So guys, any more prayer requests or praise reports? Otherwise we're gonna head on out. We're gonna shut it down, we're gonna call it a night. That's a fair amount of viewers, 134 viewers. How's the weather starting to get quite hot here? It's okay here. It's like still in the 60s, 50s and 60s. You're in Florida? Yeah. Yeah, no, up here it's still in the 50s and 60s, so it was down to 39 this morning. And then it got up to like 66 or something like that. So it's comfortable weather. Although the pollen is out, so I don't know if this is pollen or if this is a cold, but either way, I don't want it. It's gone. I want it gone. So, that was very inappropriate there, shampoo. So, let's see. We are going to delete and mute you. Sorry, buddy. What is a website you use for singing? It's called Smule, so S-M-U-L-E. Hey, Gaffati, thanks so much, I'm gonna mess your name up, I'm sorry. It's G Hadadafi. Hadadafi? I think I might have it. Yeah, it's Smule, S-M-U-L-E is the app. You get it on your phone. So you can definitely download that. It's free for like 7 days, and then they have a free plan, but it's got some restrictions to it. But if you are planning on buying a subscription to Smule, my suggestion to you is do not buy it on your phone because it'll cost you 3 or 4 times more. You want to make sure that you go on the website and buy it on the website and apply it, because that way it's much cheaper. The difference is from $99 on your phone a year to $40 per year on the website. So, big difference when you don't have to pay Microsoft, or not Microsoft, pay Apple, the Apple fees out of the Apple Store. So, make sure you don't make that mistake. It's a little bit of money saving tip there. Save you a bunch of change, for sure. $60. Or $50, whatever it is, $60, yeah. Save some money there if you're planning on buying it. But you can go try it out for like 7 days for free. And then they have a free plan too. It's just not, you can't pick the new songs. You got to sing with other people. Although there are people that will do, they'll do the what do they call it, join, and they won't sing. They'll just open the song for you. So, there's people that will open up songs just for people who don't have VIP. So, looks like my chat stream is broken on the chat app, so I might have to scroll back up. Alright. So, I think that's about it. I think it's a wrap. I think we're going to wrap it up. Station Head, thanks so much for being here, guys. I appreciate you guys, whoever may be here listening. I'm going to put you back to music, and God bless you, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so much for joining on this Jesus Did It broadcast. Alrighty, we're going to end. Alright, we shut down that Station Head broadcast so we can move forward with closing it down. So I thank you guys for being here. Thank you for supporting. If you have any interest or need any help with your broadcasting with your church, your own broadcast, businesses, whatever it may be, if you need coaching, let me know. Send me an email and we'll talk about stuff. We'll figure out if there is, what your budgets are and what you already have and equipment and things like that. So if you need some help with that, please let me know, and I will certainly help you get into a place of up and running and moving forward. So I guess let's just pray over the broadcast and let's head on out. Lord, Heavenly, hey, MTV Brittany, thanks so much for joining. Let's pray on out, and let me get back to here real quick. Lord, Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this time tonight, Lord. We appreciate every single person that's come on the broadcast. I just thank you for continuing to bless me and bless others in our Jesus Did It broadcast, Lord. We just thank you so much for the family of viewers, your church, Lord. Lord, we just thank you for the people that come on the broadcast and ask for prayers. Lord, it is an honor to be able to lift prayers up to you in your mighty and powerful Son's name. Lord, I just thank you for this opportunity, and I just ask for peace and blessings upon all those who visit this broadcast. In your mighty and powerful Son's name, in Jesus Christ's name, we pray. Amen and amen. Alrighty, so there is that. Let's head on out, and I appreciate you guys, and we will see you next time. I'm going to pick a song out. I said that we would do this song out. Let's see. Let's do... I'll play a couple other songs in between there too, but that's right, She's Got a Way. So let's do that. This is the brother singing to the mother, so happy Mother's Day to those who are mothers out there, and God bless you. And we'll see you next broadcast. I love y'all. Daryl Arnaz, thanks for joining. Hope we're on the way out. Bye-bye.
She's got a way about her. I don't know what it is, but I know that I can't live without her.
She's got a way of pleasing. I don't know what it is, but there doesn't seem to be a reason. Anyway,
she's got a smile that heals me. I don't know why it is, but I have to laugh when she reveals me.
She's got a way of talking. I don't know why it is, but it lifts me up when we are walking anywhere.
She comes to me when I'm feeling down, inspires me. Without a sound, she touches me, and I get turned around. She's got a way of showing of how I make her feel, and I find the strength to keep on going.
She's got a light around her, and everywhere she goes, a million dreams of love surround her everywhere.
She comes to me when I'm feeling down, inspires me without a sound. She touches me, I get turned around.
She's got a smile that heals me. I don't know why it is, but I have have to laugh when she reveals me.
She's got a way about her. I don't know what it is, but I know that I can't live without her anyway.
I set out on the narrow way many years ago, hoping I would find true love along the broken road.
But I got lost a time or two, wiped my brow, kept pushing through. I couldn't see how every sign pointed straight to you.
Every long lost dream led me to where you are. Others who broke my heart, they were like northern stars,
pointing me on my way into your loving arms. This much I know is true, that God blessed the broken road that led me straight to you.
Yes, He did. I think about the years I spent just passing through. I'd like to have time I lost and give it back to you.
But you just smile and take my hand. You've been there, you understand.
It's all a part of a grander plan that is coming true.
Every long lost dream led me to where you are. Others who broke my heart, they were like northern stars,
pointing me on my way into your loving arms. This much I know is true, that God bless the broken road that led me straight to you.
Now I'm just rolling home into my lover's arms. This much I know is true,
that God bless the broken road that led me straight to you.
that God bless the broken road
that led me straight to
When he told you you're not good enough, when he told you you're not right, when he told you you're not strong enough to put up a good fight, when he told you you're not worthy, when he told you you're not loved, when he told you you're not beautiful, that you'll never be enough. Fear, he is a liar. He will take your breath, stop you in your steps. Fear, he is a liar. He will rob your rest, steal your happiness, cast your fear in the fire. Cause fear, he is a liar.
When he told you you were trouble, you'll forever be alone. When he told you you should run away, you'll never find a home. When he told you you were dirty and you should be ashamed. When he told you you could be the one that grace could never change.
Oh, fear, he is a liar. He will take your breath, stop you in your steps. Fear, he is a liar. He will rob your rest, steal your happiness, cast your fear in the fire.
Cause fear, he is a liar. Let your fire fall and cast out all my fears. Let your fire fall and your love is all I feel. Let your fire fall and cast out all my fears.
Let your fire fall, your love is all I feel. Let your fire fall and cast out all my fears. Let your fire fall, your love is all I feel.
Oh, let your fire fall and cast out all my fears. Let your fire fall, your love is all I feel. Darkness tries to roll over my bones. Sorrow comes to steal the joy I own. brokenness and pain is all I know. Oh, I won't be shaken. No, I won't be shaken. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love.
Shame no longer has a place to hide. I am not a captive to these lies. I'm not afraid to leave my past behind. Oh, I will be shaken. No, I will be shaken. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love.
And there's power that can break off every chain. There's power that can empty out a grave. There's resurrection power that can save. There's power in your name. Power in your name.
My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. I'm standing in your love.
Oh, my fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love.
Standing in your
love. Standing on the rock. Oh, I'm standing in your love. God bless you.
God bless you.
I'll be your dream, I'll be your wish, I'll be your fantasy.
I'll be your hope, I'll be your love, be everything that you need.
I'll love you more with every breath, truly, madly, deeply do.
I will be strong, I will be faithful, 'cause I'm counting on
a new beginning, a reason for living, a deeper meaning, yeah. shining brightly in the velvet sky.
I'll make a wish and send it to heaven and make you want to cry.
The tears and joy for all the pleasure and the certainty
That we're surrounded by comfort, protection of the highest power. In lonely hours, the tears devour you.
I wanna stand with you on the mountain. I wanna bathe with you in the sea. I wanna lay like this forever until the sky falls down on me.
Oh, can you see it, baby?
You don't have to close your eyes, 'cause it's standing right before you.
All that you need will surely come.
Ooh, yeah. I'll be your dream, I'll be your wish, I'll be your fantasy.
I'll be your hope, I'll be your love, be everything that you need.
I'll love you more with every breath, truly, madly, deeply do. Ooh.
I wanna stand with you on a mountain. I wanna bathe with you in the sea. I wanna lay like this forever until the sky falls down on me.
I wanna stand with you on a mountain. I wanna bathe with you in the sea. I want to live like this forever until the sky falls down on me. Ooh, yeah. Ooh, yeah.
Lord, we want to thank you for your goodness and for your faithfulness in our lives, that you died on the cross of Calvary to save us from our sins. You are worthy of all praise and glory, Lord Jesus. Hallelujah.
Amen.
Oh Lord, you search me. You know my way. Even when I fail you, I know you love me.
Your holy presence surrounding me in every season, and I know you love me. I know cross I bow my knee, where your blood was shed for me. There's no greater love than this. You have overcome the grave, your glory fills the highest place. What can separate me now? You go before me, you shield my way, your hands uphold me. I know you love me.
At the cross I bow my knee, where your blood was shed for me. There's no greater love than this. You have overcome the grave, your glory fills the highest place. What can separate me now?
At the cross I bow my knee, where your blood was shed for me. There's no greater love than this. You have overcome the grave, your glory fills the highest place. What can separate me now? You tore the veil, you made a way, when you said that it is done. You tore the veil, you made a way, when you said that it is done. And when the earth fades away, falls from my eyes, and you stand before me, I know you love me. I know you love me. At the cross I bow my knee, where your blood was shed for me. There's no greater love than this. You have overcome the grave, your glory fills the highest place. What can separate me now?
At the cross I bow my knee, where your blood was shed for me. There's no greater love than this. You have overcome the grave, your glory fills the highest place. What can separate me Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
God bless you.
God bless you too.
Have a wonderful day.
And you as well.
I don't wanna hear anymore. Teach me to listen. I don't wanna see anymore. Give me a vision that you can move this heart to be set apart. I don't need to recognize the woman in the mirror, and I don't wanna trade your plan for something familiar. I can't waste a day, I can stay the same.
I wanna be different, I wanna be changed, till all of me is gone, and all that remains is a fire so bright, the whole world can see there's something different. So come and be different in me.
And I don't wanna spend my life stuck in a pattern, and I don't wanna gain this world but lose what matters. So I'm giving up everything because I wanna be different. I wanna be changed till all of me is gone, and all that remains is a fire so bright the whole earth can see that there's something different. So come and be different. Oh,
I know that I'm far from
I'm
perfect,
far from perfect, yeah.
but through the crosses I'm still
I'm worth it.
Take this beating in my heart and come and finish what you started. When they see me, let them see you, 'cause I wanna be different. Yeah, yeah.
I wanna be different, I wanna be changed till all of me is gone, and all that remains is a fire so bright the whole earth can see that there's something different. So come and be different. I just wanna be different, so you could be different in me. Oh, yeah. In me, yeah. Thank you for joining. God bless.
Tired of being what you want me to be, feeling so faithless, lost under the surface. Don't know what you're expecting of me, but under the pressure of walking in your shoes,
Caught me undertow, just caught me undertow.
every step that I take is another mistake to you.
Caught me undertow, just caught me undertow.
I've become so numb, I can feel you there. Become so tired, so much more aware. I become in there. more like me and be less like you.
Can't you see that you're smothering me, holding too tightly, afraid to lose control? 'Cause everything that you thought I would be has fallen apart right in front of you.
Caught in the undertow, just caught in the undertow.
Every step that I take is another mistake to you.
Caught in the undertow, just caught in the undertow.
And every second I waste is more than I can take. I've become so numb, I can't feel you there. I'm so tired, so much more aware. I'm becoming this, all I want to do is be more like me and be less like you.
And I know I may end up early too,
but I know you were just like me, with someone disappointed in you. Become so numb, I can't feel you there. Become so tired, so much more aware. I'm becoming this, all I want to do is be more like me and be less like you.
I become so numb, I can't feel you there.
I'm so tired of being what you want me to be.
I become so numb,
I'm tired of being what you want me to be.
Before I spoke a word, you were singing over me. And you have been so, so good to me. Before I took a breath, you breathed your life in me. And you've been so, so kind to me. And oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. And I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it. Still you give yourself away. And oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God.
When I was your foe, still your love fought for me. You have been so, so good to me. When I felt no worth, you paid it all for me. You have been so, so I'm found, leaves the 99. And I couldn't
shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me.
There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, no lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, no lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, no lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, and I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Overwhelming, reckless, incomprehensible love.
Amen.
God bless you. Thank you
God
for
bless
joining.
you too,
Take
brother.
care.
When peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll,
whatever my lot thou hast taught me to say, it is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well. It is well with my soul. My sin, oh, the bliss of this glorious thought. My sin, not in part, but the whole, is nailed to the cross, and I bear it no more. Praise the Lord, praise the Lord, oh my soul. It is well. It is well with my soul.
the day when my faith shall be sight. The clouds be rolled back as a scroll. The trump shall resound and the Lord shall descend. Even so it is well with my soul. It is well.